How about that, huh? Literally yesterday on the show, I said, I don't know if the Royals are going to make this deadline. Something about this end of the month thing feels like it's not going to happen. And I don't want to say I'm Nostradamus, but here we are 24 hours later, and the Royals announced they need more time. So what does that mean? Who comes out on top in that? Is it legal? I don't know. But the mayor of Kansas City is here to talk about it. Quinton Lucas joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. How surprised were you by that news, Mr. Mayor? Good morning.
I was not very surprised. I think the same tea leaves that you were reading relating to the fact that the conversations, while they are ongoing, there have been recent ones, it just did not seem like this is the sort of thing that in the middle of a bunch of chats, they would just say, all right, we have a decision, let's go. I think, as I've said many times on this show, perhaps that's desired, I think at this point, from almost everyone. I think it was somewhat predictable that this conversation would stretch a little bit longer.
So on that front, I mean, you guys, or I guess the county has hired attorneys to help with this process. I mean, if they decide to leave Jackson County for whatever reason, they still are going to have to pay that lease out there at the sports complex, right? You guys aren't going to just let them walk because you're good guys.
Well, I would never pretend to speak for Jackson County, but yes, there's a lease. There's a lease that runs for a good deal more years, by the way. We're talking 2031. It is only 2023 now, and it's a contract. And so I would expect contractual remedies to be looked at from the county's perspective. Actually, the city gives some funding each year to the Truman Sports Complex, and some of that to the Royals' behalf. So there would actually be a lot more discussion in terms of what comes next in connection with it all. And so, in some ways you could see more lawyers being involved as a good thing. I am one, so I always love to have us. And another way, it could suggest that this is something where it's not quite as easy to extricate yourself out of. I mean, much shorter marriages have much longer disputes, and this has been a marriage between the county and the Kansas City Royals for some time now.
Do you, when you look at the city perspective, have you guys offered anything to the Royals beyond just the basic, things that you might offer, like, I don't know, improving roads around a stadium, theoretically downtown? Has there been any just cash offer from the city?
Well, if there is a small concern, but, I don't get too bothered by a lot of things, but, the letter did just mention the counties. I would say there has been a robust discussion with the city of Kansas City. As you know, Pete, from covering us for a number of years now, most things that happen in this city happen with rather substantial investment from the taxpayers of Kansas City. Substantial, I guess I'll just leave it at that. And so I would think that discussions have aligned kind of with that being such a thing. And I would expect the Royals, if they do stay in Kansas City, to have that sort of conversation and continue that sort of conversation with leadership at Kansas City. And so I think this is more than us saying, all right, yeah, you can vacate one street and we'll build some sidewalks down 11th Street and all is good. Instead, it would be something that is a great deal more substantial. And this is why this conversation has been, if not a frustrating one that has stayed vexing for a lot of people, because you've got the state of Missouri playing in two different Missouri locations, by the way, right? You have potentially the city of Kansas City. You have counties at issue. I don't know, actually, the extent of conversations with North Kansas City. They're a fine jurisdiction. I enjoy going there often. But there will be substantial participation, I think, from any government entity in which this stadium sits. And, of course, as we've discussed many times, right, there is also the Kansas City Chiefs part of the conversation, which is one that really cannot be ignored. I say that as somebody who was at the NFL just the other day.
What about the, I don't know if you saw this, but you're a sports fan, the Tampa Bay Rays are inching closer towards a new stadium down there in St. Petersburg, Florida, and that's a $1.3 billion project to keep them down there. And it may not have all the, entertainment district amenities that the Royals are looking at here, but $1.3 billion versus the $2+ billion they're looking for in Kansas City. Yeah. And that's, by the way, in a bigger metropolitan area, of course, than the Kansas City region. When you see other teams doing projects like that at nearly half the cost, does it make you wonder if the Royals are maybe shooting a little too high here with their grand plans?
I think regardless of what happens in this conversation, you will have what is a discussion, a substantial discussion, frankly. And I would hope that my partners, wherever they are, be it Frank White, or Jerry Nolte at Clay County, right, have this discussion of saying, all right, what are the real numbers and what is the real need? This should not be the sort of thing to the taxpayers of any of our jurisdictions. And I say this as the mayor of the largest city in Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties, that, this should be a thing where there is a real assessment of, all right, what is your actual cost, rather than an assessment of kind of something more akin to a blank check. Mm-hmm. I would think that the conversations you have right now are doing that. But, yeah, I mean, we are seeing the deals happen all around the country right now, whether it's baseball in connection with the Tampa Bay Rays, or if it's some of the mini football stadium discussions around the country. This is a substantial number we're looking at, and it is one where I think that full assessment and analysis needs to be done, which I will note to you has not yet been done, really in a broad-based public conversation.
And anything, just to put a bow on this part of the conversation, anything, the Royals say they want something on the ballot April of next year. The deadline for that is what, middle of January, or is it early?
Middle of January.
Okay, it is
middle of January. That said, I mean, you know politics like I know politics. I mean, look, if you got the votes, maybe it's something you throw on and then you vote on 1 week and then you're done. If there is, to any extent, public discussion, public concern, and public angst, and we have talked about the polls, by the way, and I'm just reading now, there's a survey coming out in Jackson County, too. This is not an easy issue, and I say this with great respect to everybody involved. Sports stadiums aren't easy issues. Back in the mid-2000s when we did this the last time, the sales tax for the Chiefs and the Royals didn't pass by that much. So whether you're back in Jackson County looking at a brand-new sales tax in Clay County, you've got work to do, I think, even at the political level before you're doing the electoral vote in April. And so I would, if this was me, I'm the type of guy who would kick a field goal before fourth down if it's late in the game. I would want to have something that looks like legislation ready by December, and that's what I would be recommending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Meantime, look at what's happening, and we've talked about it in the county when it comes to the tax assessments. We now have 2 municipalities in Jackson County suing the county over the assessment debacle, that being Lee's Summit and Independence. Is that something Kansas City is or should be considering?
You know, Kansas City will explore every opportunity possible to, I think, stand up for our taxpayers. And so I have not read the extent of those lawsuits. I have a good working relationship with the mayors of both communities. I had a brief conversation with the mayor of Lee's Summit as it relates to this issue, but we'll make sure that we explore all of this. I know people are working through the appeals process. My wife handled most of it, but we had an appeal and had our rate amended, actually, like many others in Jackson County. And to the extent that has been done for a number of folks, we want to make sure that, frankly, if there are those who might, for any number of reasons, not been part of that process or have been left out in some way, that we actually are standing up for their rights. So it's something we'll look into. I have said time and again, without actually picking fights, look, nothing's personal. I just like things making sure they're being done right and for the people of Kansas City and all of the people in this county in the best way. So we'll make sure we evaluate that in the same way that our peers in Eastern Jackson County have.
Now, what is your schedule on setting mill levy rates? I know a lot of these municipalities have to do it here in the next couple of weeks. Is that the case for Kansas City, Missouri?
That is the case for Kansas City. I believe we have an ordinance that is going to be coming down the pike soon. I have looked at a memorandum relating to that in terms of what we do. That being said, and this isn't a cop-out necessarily for what our assessment is, we'll still take a look at it, our small A assessment, not big A assessment. But, a lot of the funding that all of us will be paying is going to our public school districts. Here in Kansas City, Missouri, that means charter schools as well. And so I don't know, even with a city change, you will see that much of a change. This is something where I still think the long-term answer is how do we make sure that we're coming up with processes, whether that's state legislative change in the future or some other remedy, that make sure that the hits like this don't happen with the rapidity that it did this time around in Jackson County. Yeah,
it's not a good situation. The mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas. I know that, initially I was told by your staff that you were at some big conference today and couldn't make it. So I'm just curious here where you are.
I am on my porch this morning in Kansas City, Missouri, went on a run, spending time with the kid. But what they are talking about is, actually may not know, I'll be giving a talk at the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas at Austin tomorrow, telling Texans about all the things we do right here in Missouri and Kansas. And so day tripping down there. I'll be back in time for those of you who are late owls at the Plaza Art Fair. And I will note we may not have time to talk about the Plaza today. I was at a big business opening on the Country Club Plaza yesterday. While certainly there is need for improvement, we have businesses investing tens of millions of dollars there. We have new residential product. You know, I think rumors of the demise of the Plaza are a bit over-exaggerated. We've got work to do, but it's still, I think, our premier business property in Kansas City.
Okay, all right. So you're feeling good about things, or I guess better than the news headlines would suggest when it comes to the Plaza future.
Look, you know, hey, I think people need to get their lives together, their act together. I would like local ownership of the Plaza. I don't mean to be too strong and beat up on any businesses, but there are ways to get things working there. We need to keep doing it, but Kansas Cityans like the Country Club Plaza. I think we're all interested in investing in its long-term future and viability. All
right. Well, we will talk to you next week, Mr. Mayor, and don't get too many ideas from Austin, Texas. They've gone off the rails a little bit down there.
I'll be sure to do it. Y'all take care.
Yeah, you as well. That's Quinton Lucas on KCMO.